welcome to my channel. My name is Sandra Gutierrez of Nomad Stitches, and this is the faux garter stitch tutorial. Now, this stitch is really cool. It looks so much like what garter stitch with knitting looks like. And I mean, it basically does that because it's all made with slip stitches. I know that sounds scary. Slip stitches are scary for a lot of people because they're so tiny and you think, oh my god, this is going to take forever to make, but it doesn't take that long with this stitch because the stitches stretch so much that when you make one row, it actually works out quite long. So what you would take to make however many rows is not that much longer than with normal stitches. Okay, so this is an example of a project that you can do with this faux garter stitch. This is my new twisted cow, which looks quite fun to wear, and it also works as a little beanie. So yeah, this stitch looks really cool. This is the right side. As you can see, it's nice and gartery, and on the wrong side it looks like this. So the fabric is actually quite dense but very light, which is great. When it comes to material options, I would not use fingering weight yarn for this one. I think that would take a long time and it would be a little bit difficult to get into the stitches for slip stitches. But using a thicker yarn works really well because yes, it is a thick fabric, but it's very light. You don't have much bulk to it at all. So this is, for example, I think it's bulky weight, and it doesn't feel thick at all. Just thick enough, you know, to be a cow to keep you warm. But if I made this as a sweater, it would actually work really well. Okay, so let's learn how to make this faux garter stitch with a crochet hook. You will need some yarn and a crochet hook. Use something that's a little bit bigger than what the yarn calls for. So for example, I'm using worsted weight yarn in this little sample, and I'm using a 6.5 millimeter hook, which means that my stitches will be quite open and loose, and it will be very easy to get into them. But before we get to work, let me remind you to please subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on any videos in the future. You can also find me on Instagram as Nomad Stitches or on my website nomadstitches.com. Okay, let's get to work now. For this stitch, you will start with a chain. It can be as long or as short as you want it to be. It doesn't have to be odd or even numbers. And I prefer to use a bigger hook than what the yarn calls for. So this is worsted weight yarn, and I would normally use a 4.5 or a 5 millimeter. But in this case, I'm using a 6.5 because I rather have looser stitches than tighter ones. Okay, then you're gonna work a row of slip stitches. I recommend working on the bump at the back of the chain to keep the beginning of your work nice and neat. Row 1 now is the wrong side of your work. We're going to turn and work a right side row, which is a front loop only slip stitch. So I pick up only the front loop of my stitches. So do you see those V's? The front loop is the one that's closer to me. In that one, I'm going to work slip stitches all along. A nice way to keep your stitches loose is to not hold your yarn very tightly. So normally I would hold it like this. So I can do that, or I can simply hold it a little bit more loosely. Another one is to hold onto the back of your work when you pull your yarn through. That way your slip stitches won't be tightened. Then chain 1 at the end of the row, turn, and on the wrong side you're going to work on the back loop only. So again, this is our stitch. Now the back loop is the one that is further away from me. So again, slip stitches, but this time on the back loop only. These ones are a little bit trickier to find, so do make sure to keep your stitches loose on all right side rows so that the wrong side row can be worked a little bit easier. At the end of the row, chain 1 again and turn your work to do another right side row. Now you can't really tell the pattern, but it's already starting to form that little ridge in between the rows. So one more time, slip stitch on the front loop only. So if you want to turn it over, that's where you can see the full stitch, and at the front, this is the front loop only. As you can see, I use this little bit of the hook instead of going in with the tip. So this little lip, I guess it's called, helps you pick up the stitch a little bit easier. And you'll just continue to repeat that. On the wrong side row, you work on the back loop only. And on the right side row, you work on the front loop only. So you can start to see those ridges on the right side, and the wrong side is quite flat. So I'm going to work a few more rows and then show you what it looks like. So this is the sample after I've worked a few rows. And then you can see those ridges very, very clearly, and the back is nice and smooth. This stitch really does need blocking because it does curl up quite a lot. So do make sure you either steam block it or wet block it to keep it in place. But even though it's worked only with slip stitches, the rows are really, really long. So it doesn't work as slowly as you think it might. Well, I really hope you've enjoyed that tutorial. I really love this stitch. It's very, very pretty, and I feel like I can make so many things with it, and I cannot wait to get started. And I hope you've enjoyed making something with it too. Please don't forget to leave a comment and tell me what you think about this tutorial, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!